Have you ever felt completely out of control with your eating? Like you couldn't stop yourself from eating everything in sight. Things that didn't even sound good, things that you knew you shouldn't be eating. You just couldn't get yourself to stop. Even if you weren't hungry. I did too, and it was awful. I'd like to share with you the steps that I took to finally stop overeating and finally start taking control over my body. And those tips have helped me to lose over 250 pounds. So that vicious cycle stops here, my friend. Let's get started. Overeating in general isn't a bad thing. We all do it. Whether it's Thanksgiving because we don't often get that type of food, or you're at a buffet and your eyes are just too big for your stomach. The real issue with overeating is when it becomes more of a pattern and you just can't get yourself to stop. So the first step is to determine whether or not you are overeating. And to do that, I have a few questions to ask yourself. The first one, do I eat past feeling full more often than not? Do I snack mindlessly even when I'm not hungry? Finally, do I often feel uncomfortable, extremely full, or bloated after finishing most of my meals? It's also possible to assess whether you're overeating by paying attention to the foods you're actually eating and keeping a food journal. There are a ton of food diary apps out there that you can use. I personally like MyFitnessPal, and I have a whole video that I can link to for you that shows you how to use it. And just try tracking for a week, and so you can get a good understanding and a good baseline for how much you're having. But in my experience, and probably the reason why you clicked on this video, is you know 100% you are overeating and you just can't seem to help yourself. And I've been there. I know how embarrassing it is and how ashamed you feel and how hard it is to believe that you can actually make positive change because you lose complete control over your actions. So let's talk about the 5 tips that you can follow to actually stop yourself when you're overeating and finally take control back over your behavior. Tip number 1 is to ask yourself, why am I overeating? Chances are you're not overeating at every meal because you just love the food so much and you just can't get enough of it and you feel like this is the last time you're ever gonna get it. I know when I used to overeat, it was on anything in sight, not even things that sounded good. And I would get almost a food high of just being so out of control, needing to eat, even though I shouldn't, until that eventual guilt and feelings of being extremely ashamed and helpless overtook me, and I felt like, okay, well, I finally am done now, I guess. I don't know why I did that, and then I was able to leave. But it wasn't because I was really telling myself, stop, you don't want that. Maybe you're overeating because you're just not eating enough food during the day, and so then when you're tired and it's later in the day and you have access to more food, you lose your ability to make the best choices at that time and you overeat then. Maybe you're eating foods that are diet foods that you don't like, and then you want to eat the foods you love, but then you can't stop yourself. Maybe this is a form of sabotaging yourself so that you can't actually achieve your goals. Maybe you feel pressured to stay the same weight, and so even though you really do want to lose the weight, when it all comes down to it, you overeat so that you don't make any changes. Maybe you feel you aren't worth caring for and taking care of your body. So this step will probably take some time, and you're likely gonna have to dig deep and understand where you're coming from and what's motivating you to continue this behavior despite wanting to change. Because once you identify your motivation and whatever those reasons are, that will really be helpful in actually changing your behavior for the future. Tip number 2, stop and drink some water. A super useful strategy that I've used is extremely simple. When you feel like you're gonna walk into the pantry or you're gonna open up the freezer and you just know you're gonna go and just binge on all of that food, instead, stop, go pour yourself a glass of water, like 8 to 10 ounces of water, and drink it, and then wait 30 minutes. If you can do that, that's gonna do a few things. 1, it's going to fill up your stomach and you're not gonna be as hungry, so you might have less of an urge to go and have some snacks. 2, it's gonna actually stop that behavior from happening. Basically, you had an impulse to go do something and you stopped it. That's a huge step. Tip number 3 is start a food journal. So I've learned that organization, being detail-oriented, and paying attention to actual data and numbers and not all the emotions behind all this stuff has been really helpful for my weight loss journey. One way I've done this is by tracking my food and paying attention to all the foods I'm eating. As you're having it, you write it down and you pay attention to it. It's becoming more aware of the food you're putting into your body. Another step down that road is to actually start tracking your macros and have a nutrition plan that makes you understand how many grams of carbs and protein and fat that make up your total calories in that day you should be having in order to reach your goals. It basically takes the guesswork out of it and the emotion out of it, and it lets you understand, if I eat this, I will get to this weight, and I just need to follow this plan. I have a full video on how to calculate your macros and even breaks down what macros are if you're super lost on this topic. So I will link to that for you below. But the idea is you want to be able to maintain a plan, because planning is always helpful, on what your behavior should be, because that will align with your goals. And like I talk about in my video on why women need to eat more protein, protein is so helpful for weight loss. It makes you feel fuller longer. It takes more energy and burns more calories for your body to break it down than any other type of food that you eat. And it's satisfying and tastes delicious. So I want you to eat more of that, because you're gonna be happier, you're gonna feel fuller, and your body is gonna be happier as well. So it's a big win. You know, there is a reason why when you finish that salad with just some lettuce, a light dressing, and carrots, and maybe some grapes, that 20 minutes later, you're starving. Yes, we need to eat greens, and veggies are great, but protein is essential to make us actually feel full. And when I'm talking about protein, I mean from all different sources: plant, animal, dairy, protein powders, whole foods. Just there's so many different ways to add in protein that will make you feel fuller, and your body will just thank you for it. And you will tend to eat less and overeat less if you have more protein. And you'll see this when you calculate your macros, but you should be having a lot of protein, like at least 20 grams of protein with every meal, including snacks. But you'll see that once you calculate everything and you check out that video. Tip number 5, clear the distractions. It is shockingly easy to overeat when you're distracted. Whether you're watching TV, looking at Instagram, working on your email on your computer, or just whatever it is, there are so many ways to get distracted. And what that does is it breaks that connection between your stomach and your brain. And it takes a little bit after you finish a meal for your body to actually feel full and to send those messages to your brain, hey, I'm full. So you likely have already overeaten before your brain has that feeling that you're full. So what you want to do is pay attention to the food you're eating. Be aware that that food is going to be nourishing. It's going to be tasty and delicious. You're paying attention to how well balanced the food is. And as you eat the food, you're gonna have that connection better with your brain, that you're actually getting what your body needs. You don't need to overeat. So remember, this is a process of retraining your behavior and your brain to think and behave differently. It's all about repetition on the behaviors that we want that align with our goals. It is totally normal to fail here and there, and it's going to happen, and you have to not beat yourself up when you do fail and just recognize it's part of the process. Does it stink? Yeah, it does, but it doesn't mean it's gonna ruin everything. Instead, how do I make sure that I won't have this happen again? So if you do fail, just take a second, take a breath, think about what happened and how you failed, and then move on and make better choices the next time. That's all we can do. What's done is done, but what hasn't been done yet is still under your control. The worst thing you can do is to go back and be like, forget it, I can't do it, I'm over it, it's hopeless, I'm never gonna lose weight, and go and just give yourself permission to go and binge eat again, because we don't wanna be doing that anymore. Stopping yourself at any point before then is still a win, and you have to count those small wins and then build on those. Now, I do recommend that if you do try these tips and you still can't get yourself to stop and it's just continuing, I do recommend that you talk with a doctor, a nutrition coach, a dietitian, or someone that can help you, because there are rare cases in which this could turn into some sort of eating disorder, and I want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. If you're still feeling lost after trying these tips, check out my 30-Day Healthy program. It's a weight loss program that has daily supportive emails and meal plans, and it helps you understand how to have a better relationship with food. So check that out, and here's to being better than yesterday every day. I'll see you in the next video.